you die.
Okay, so we just listened to Bad Omens album, The Death of Peace of Mind. Yes, we are a little late on it. We skipped over it. We were not very good at reviewing albums earlier this year, or at least staying on top of them. So came back around after they started blowing up. So now we're going to talk about it, and I'll give you some track highlights, some lowlights, and my initial thoughts, and we'll go a little deeper dive with Jordan here in a second and give you our ratings. So, okay. Bad Omens, The Death of Peace of Mind. I thought this was fairly good to a point. A lot of their music, I don't think there's any bad music here. There's not any bad music here. There is definitely some dips, some slow parts. Mainly, there's a couple songs in here that they feel like interludes, like it's just like a straight up slow song that's kind of like, there's not even really like a verse chorus thing to it. It's kind of just like it feels like an interlude, like it's just a very slow, like tied song in there. And I would definitely remove a couple songs, especially because it's a 53-minute album. I think it definitely suffers from that. It also suffers from the Devil Wears Prada slow intro syndrome, where almost every song has a very slow intro. I think they have only one or two songs on here. Two songs, I believe. Artificial Suicide and The Gray, I think, are the only two songs that actually start off with a fast pace or like guitar riffs. The rest of it's all like electronic beats and stuff, which isn't always a bad thing. I just think, every song does that. So anyways, so some track notes here. I've got... You got Concrete Jungle. So right off the bat, you start to realize, they do have an influence from Bring Me the Horizon for sure. Later Bring Me the Horizon, you can feel it in just the structures of their songs and stuff. I thought the Concrete Jungle was pretty cool because it has that slow part, or the slow majority of the part, but it slowly like transitions into a heavier part. So you get like a kind of a progression, which is nice, which is kind of what I wanted from some of the other songs on here. The title track, Death of Peace of Mind, it's another slow burn, but it does have a breakdown in the third chorus, which is something I always like to see, especially when you have a third chorus, to tie it into the breakdown really is something a little bit interesting. It kind of mixes it up a little bit, mixes up that structure of songs. What it cost, I like that one was definitely an interlude. It was like it's a 1 minute 43 track, and it tied into the next one, so it had a little bit, there was definitely some more progression in here. There is some interesting stuff that they do for sure. Bad Decisions, that was one of the ones that was like, I don't know if I'd count it as an interlude. It sounded like its own song, but it was all slow. It was just too long, and it just felt like filler to me. The Gray, that one starts with some riffs, so you get a little bit of energy picking up a little bit. Who Are You? I started writing that there was some interesting stuff on here. They had like, it was very electronic intro, of course. There was like some panned like cymbals and stuff. So just some like little notes that was like really interesting to hear as it's playing along. However, as it kept going, it was another one that was way too slow and long. I would cut that one out. And the Bad Decisions, it just felt like filler, or like, I don't know, combine them with something else, combine them with another song or something. I Don't Want the Money, I think was the name of the song. It's the acronym. That one had like this little pop EDM breakdown thing where it had the doo 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 like notes in the electronics, but it was like during a breakdown. I thought that was really interesting. Artificial Suicide was probably the heaviest overall song on the album. And then you've got Miracle, which was the outro. I do appreciate them for having, again, they had that progression in that last song where it's slow and then it goes into a heavy. I think the last part where it had like a little breakdown, if they would have extended that just like another couple measures just to make it like a full breakdown, would have like been a little nice tie. But it was like kind of just a really short heavy section. I just blew its load a little too fast, but still appreciate the progression that they had. So those are my track highlights. As I said, I think there was definitely too many slow intros. I think it's just a lower energy style of album, and that's usually just not for me. I like to have some pickup. I like upbeat stuff. They did have those moments, but I think just to start every song with a slow beat is just kind of, you know, it's a little draining at times, but it's not bad either. You know, if that makes any sense. Like I said, I already said there's lots of filler in here. I think there's just like 2 or 3 tracks that I would just take off. Bad Decisions, and Who Are You? Those are just really slow, long songs that don't really build up to anything. There's no real progression in them. It just feels like filler. And I think that would have really tightened the album up a little bit, made it shorter and a little bit more concise. Because the rest of them, you know, like I said, they have some nice progressions. They have heavy parts, slow parts. Yeah. I did like that they have a lot of electronics in here over just like, you know, kind of like the Devil Wears Prada, how they had like slow intros and stuff, but it was mostly like just, there was a little bit of synth in there, but it was like mostly just like slow drums, and you're just like, ugh. But this one had a little bit more of an interesting take on it. They had some more synth poppy style stuff, kind of reminded me of the 1975 at times, stuff like that. Lyric wise, I would say it leans over into the generic style of lyrics, you know, of kind of just very token metalcore or you know, dare I say emo lyrics, if you know what the fuck I mean by that. Just kind of, you know, a lot of stuff about relationships and stuff. However, before you just start clicking off and leaving, I do think that they do know how to fill those out more. They know how to add enough like filler and extend their thoughts out to where it does feel a little bit more thought out. It does feel slightly more poetic. So I did get a little bit of that enjoyment out of the lyrics, I think. But other than that, that's really most of what I have to say. I don't think there's any bad music here. I think there's just some really slow parts that didn't need to be there. Just tighten it up, and I think it would have been a pretty decent album for what it is. You know, I think it is very digestible. It's cool that it's bringing people into, you know, metalcore. There is some cool heavy parts, and some interesting heavy parts. It's not just like basic heavy parts either. So, yeah. So, Jordan, what are you thinking about this?
I thought it was all right. There was definitely a lot of elements that I liked. There was a lot of like electronics and a lot of like kind of uh not lo-fi, but kind of like the Weekend type of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like stripped down, but also very like melodic and electronic music, which I think is pretty
Vocally driven with the
cool.
melody.
Yeah, very vocally driven, very like, dare I say, horny.
Yes, it was definitely a horny.
Yeah, but I definitely like kind of the mix of that with the heavy that they did on some of the songs, and I really find myself grabbing more towards those songs, which is kind of a problem because there's not really a lot of that on here. There's a couple heavy songs. There's like a couple heavier songs that are like heavier than most, but it's very
Yeah.
few and far between. And I think maybe that could have just came down to the album being a little bit too long and there being a lot of filler tracks that could have been left off to kind of keep the flow of the album going and kept the pace up a little bit more, which I think it definitely could have used that a lot.
Yeah, especially because all the songs that
Yeah.
had heavier parts still had those slow parts. So I think having the songs that were just like flat slow were just like, it's just like kind of unnecessary. It just kind of adds more
it was kind of a slog a
flat
little
space.
bit, and I feel like uh, it really kind of dips down a couple times, which is kind of not a good thing. But whenever it does pick up, it does get a little bit better than average, I'd say. Um, I thought the gray was cool. I don't want the money. That one was all
That
right.
was interesting.
Yeah.
What did you think about Just Pretend? That was the one that blew up on TikTok. Everyone knows that one. And I have heard the clip so many goddamn times. I had never heard the actual song. And honestly, hearing the song, I think it was actually pretty good. It had a hook. It had the hook in the chorus. It had some heavy parts. And it had some like decent pacing. Like it wasn't a very slow song. So I thought it was all right. What did you think of that one?
Yeah, it was probably the best, like, well-rounded song on the album. I feel like
Yeah.
it's definitely had those elements of everything that they did on the album. But yeah, I mean, I could have done without the horny a little bit. Nobody is getting in the mood and going in the room and turning on some metalcore. Like, no one does that.
The way you
Like,
buff,
if you're
the way you taste.
like, I don't know. It was just a little bit too much. And like, I like Deftones, but like Deftones, they don't really like
It's more
do
of a
that without
mood.
like
It's a mood.
they don't really
specifically say it.
outright say it with the lyrics, and like they kind of like meander around the fact that it is what it is, but like they kind of get more creative with it.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe that's just a little bit too much of like the Weeknd type of influence, and I like the Weeknd a lot, but
Me too.
whenever you're listening to the metalcore, it's not really like a vibe that you really are expecting. So it's kind of like a weird mix. But otherwise, I thought it was pretty all right. I definitely think it's way too long for what it is. There's too many like lulls in it that kind of hinder the album for me.
Yeah, I think, like you said, like I said earlier, if you just took out a couple of those songs, it would have really tightened it up and made it feel a little bit more varied. I think it plays to the normie side a little too much, which again might work for newer people to the genre. To kind of this is the new age style of introductory bands to heavy stuff if they're not usually not listening to that kind of stuff. Like I used to show all my friends who didn't listen to metal, I'd be like, oh yeah, listen to Day to Remember and I Am Abomination. There's no screaming, and I could see some people getting into stuff from this, so I appreciate what they're doing. I just think as a whole it's too long. It's very, very, very long, 53 minutes. Just cut out a couple songs and tighten it up. So definitely be interested to hearing some more from them. But also, I mean, it is Sumerian. They've got Poppy and stuff, which is also very similar to this kind of stuff. Has very interesting mix of metal and soft parts. So, yeah, what would you rate this?
Just because it did really lull in like a couple places for me, and it didn't really have the best mix of like the style. I'd say I'm gonna give it a 6.
6.
Like it's better than like average, but it's not anything to write home about, and it's definitely got some problems. It's definitely too long, so I'd take up a couple points off of it, and I'd say it's a pretty middle of the road 6.
Yeah. I think for me, it did have those slow sections that I would just flat out just not listen to again. A couple of those songs. However, I think the other songs that were on here were definitely very interesting. So I think I'll raise you one. I think I'll go 7 out of 10. Compared to others, I think if they tighten it up and do just a little bit more focus, I think they could probably hit a little bit higher for sure. But I think a 7 out of 10 is pretty fair for these guys. And I think when they do have good hooks. I think the mix. I don't even think we talked about the mixing and stuff. I think the mix and all that was really good. Everything was really solid. Which it is Sumerian, so they've got the power to really put production into their albums and stuff. So yeah, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. So, all right, cool.